Hey, Paola.
Hi, Father.
How's it going? Oh, you've got a sticky note.
I have a sticky note.
I'm excited about this.
All right, so this comes from a focus missionary.
From a focus missionary, okay.
That I work with. Anyways, she was talking to me. You know, like the first year you do like a dating fast, and then the second year you're able to date. Sometimes they coin it the dating feast. Oh, you haven't heard that word?
No. So I know that the Fellowship of Catholic University students, as a rule, for first-year missionaries, encourages the dating fast so that the missionary can focus on their own formation, making the adjustment to missionary life, and so that they can really be engaged full-time with their whole heart in what they're doing. And because there's a lot going on, something like a new dating relationship or something might not be the best thing for them.
Right.
But is it true that somebody who's already dating would be able to continue dating?
That kind of depends. I know people who in their first year of dating, they started dating a year before they became a focus missionary. They would take a step back and maybe only write letters once a month.
Okay.
So it depended per couple.
Yeah.
What was happening. It was really tough. Yeah. So
Interesting. Okay.
there's different scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, we're not talking about that stuff. What I do want to talk about is the labeling that this dear missionary informed me of that I thought was so amazing. And I will not say her name, but she's hilarious. You know how like people have like a crush on someone and you're like, oh, you can't stop thinking about that. And that's kind of what happens after like the dating fast. You're like, well, that person's really cute. Well, that person, oh, well, who's going to ask me out on a date?
I always think it's interesting when this kind of a subject comes up, because somebody will say, you know how like, so people have these things, they're called crushes. Like they have to explain this to me as though I'm completely unaware of how the human heart works, or like as though I've never myself been on a date or anything like that. And so they just feel this like real need to like make sure that I understand how
it.
like here's the landscape of romantic life in the world today. Just so you know, Father Sam.
Here's how it
You're
works.
clearly, inept.
No. So she said that before there's an actual crush, she says there's a crinkle. I have a crinkle.
A crinkle?
A crinkle is not yet a crush, but a crinkle.
Okay.
It's there, but it hasn't, evolved into crush.
So what does that mean? Is that like this is the indication like, oh, I'm noticing that I find that person attractive.
Yeah.
Or that I have an interest in talking with that person.
Pretty much you're just like, I have a crinkle.
Okay.
And I wanted to present this to you because when I heard this, I thought this was the funniest thing in the world. And I asked her, I was like, well, is it crinkle with like a C or a K? And she goes, I think crinkle with a K. I was like, great. So that means crushes with a K too, because that just makes sense. You have to continue it.
Can crinkle be spelled with a K to start?
It can if you wanted to.
That's a good point. Yeah, no, right, because words don't matter, and language is entirely malleable, and we can just make things up. There are no rules. There's no such thing as
it's like
grammatical rules.
Krusty Krab in SpongeBob. Okay, it's spelled with a K.
Yeah, no. Once again, you're using a reference I couldn't possibly understand because I'm so out of touch.
Oh, so I wanted to know what your thoughts were. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so funny to be walking around. I was like, I have a crinkle today, but it's not a crush yet, but it's a crinkle.
I mean, it's fun, I suppose. It's a fun word to use, and I don't object in principle to the idea of coining a new phrase to describe the
movements
feeling,
of the heart.
the movement of the heart. Right. I don't have any objection in principle. My question would be, how widespread is a phrase like this? Is this something that like she's the only one using, or is this something that has come to be discussed? So as you know, I have a great fondness for misusing teenage slang in front of teenagers.
Oh yeah,
or for using it in the worst possible tone, so they really understand. Like I say, like things like "Let's get lit, fam," because it makes them so uncomfortable, and it's really just fun watching them squirm while I use their words.
Yeah.
And so that's just a fun thing to do.
I would say
it amuses me.
It is this person's own vernacular.
Okay,
Is
now,
this her own way of just kind of
does she
describing
want
things?
this to catch on?
She says it to people. I think it's great.
Because again,
Will it catch on? I don't know. But,
Yeah.
like, stop trying to make fetch happen. I don't know. Like, will it catch on?
I don't know. I don't know if it's important enough.
I just wanted to present it
don't
to
know
you
if
and
it's
see what
important
your
enough.
thoughts were on this. Because I'm getting I get a kick out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else to say about a crinkle. It's descriptive. How's that? It's descriptive. It's saying something.
Yeah.
I'm not.
The crinkle comes before the crush. It just it also just makes sense. I guess if I'm looking at a piece of paper, I'm going to crinkle a little bit. Actually, then I'm going to crush it. That's where my mind went.
Yeah. Of course, if you like someone, you don't want to destroy them, and crushing something destroys it. So, again, I'm not even sure if crush is a good word. I'm not even totally certain that I agree with that. All right, but there's something here.
There is something
There's something here, okay?
What is it?
Well, it's the idea of, go back to C.S. Lewis, The Four Loves.
I actually don't know The Four Loves.
Well, you're going to have to read it for the certification.
Yes.
So,
yes.
It's going to be fine. And it's really interesting. And even if we don't have to talk about The Four Loves themselves, but if folks read C.S. Lewis, The Four Loves, it's a really good read, first of all, and he kind of dives into the different ways in which we love, and gets into some of the stuff that's happening there. And then Mike Aquilina has this book, Friendship and the Fathers. So I'm just starting that right now, and it's very interesting. But the idea of friendship and where it comes from, that it has to begin with something. And so C.S. Lewis argues that there's this thing called storge. We always talk about eros, philia, and agape. So the three Greek concepts of love. Eros, romantic or erotic love; philia, the brotherly friendship love; and agape, that unconditional total love that is really perfect, and it's the love with which God loves us, right? But he says there's a fourth kind of love, and it kind of comes before all the others. It's storge. Storge really means affection. It's the love of affection. It means there's something that you find in this person that intrigues you. And it's also the kind of love that allows you to engage with someone even if you don't know them. So the love of affection is actually very necessary in ministry, for example. Here we're going to encounter different people in different situations. And sometimes we don't know them at all. They're total strangers to us, and they come in need of help. And when that total stranger comes in need of your ministry and in need of your help, what do you have to offer to them? And it's starting with this love of storge, this love of affection. It says, I simply see you for who you are.
Yeah. And
so I will love you up to this point. I can at least have affection for you. I don't know you yet, and so I can't that love can't grow to anything else. I don't have friendship with you. I've never met you before. But now I can at least love you with this love of affection. It's a really interesting idea because, especially in the context of counseling or pastoral care, I want to be able to love the people who come through the door.
Yeah.
I want to be able to meet them, but I don't know them. How do you love somebody who you don't know? You gotta get to know them, right?
There's no way around that.
But in order for them to even have the door open to walk through, there has to be at least that affection, which it's the affection that says, simply because you are.
Yeah. Timothy says this, you being so affectionate. What is the phrase? I'm going to have to look this one up. Keep talking. Because there's a scripture passage in this.
I thought you were going to go. Now I have to fill the silence.
You have to fill the silence because I have to look for it.
No, I have storge for you right now. That's about it.
What is the Bible? I'm throwing a blank.
It's okay. Don't worry. No, but so the crinkle, that's the beginning of affection.
Yeah.
It's not quite developed into anything yet. It's a crush. So if somebody has a crinkle on someone, we're gonna go with this phrase. You tell your missionary friend that we're making this phrase happen. All right? I'm gonna support her in it.
No way.
I'm not entirely certain that it makes any sense, but you know what? I have learned over time that the special vocabulary that exists within Focus is worthwhile.
I don't know if it's a Focus thing. This is definitely this person's thing.
But as you know, Focus does have its own vocabulary. There's its own set of its own lexicon, its own way of phrasing different things.
Do you know what they have in the new staff training booklet?
Do they have a dictionary?
They have a thing in the back with all the acronyms
It's a
and
Focus
what they
English
mean.
dictionary.
Oh my goodness! I was like, this is brilliant.
I think that's a good idea.
I think it's. Oh, at this point, they keep. I was like, my gosh, they added so much more.
Well, because there's
every
always
year.
there's always new things. Exactly. So you can tell her that we're going to use Crinkle. But if we're looking at what happens in the context of a romantic relationship developing, it starts with we would normally say it starts with a crush, but she has added another level.
Yes, she has.
She's added an earlier pre-crush level, which is
It makes
the crinkle.
sense. Yes, it makes sense.
But there's something that makes you say, hey, this person intrigues me. Being around them, there's something attractive about them, and I would be interested in getting to know them better.
Right.
It has not yet progressed to the stage of I must get to know them better. I deeply desire.
I want
to
to
know
see them from a
better.
distance and just observe.
Yeah, exactly. I'm willing to observe them.
Yes.
Which is weird. That sounds really creepy. I'm willing to observe this person while I decide whether or not I like them.
But people do that.
Yeah, no, it's weird.
Oh my gosh!
Right?
I guess it is weird.
In another age, we would have called it stalking.
Oh my gosh. Oh, okay. So this is in 1 Thessalonians 2:8. Even so, being affectionately desirous of you, we were well pleased to impart unto you not only the gospel of God, but our very selves, because you have become so dear to us.
Okay. Let me see that again.
Okay.
I want to look at it. Okay. Even so, being affectionately desirous of you, we were well pleased to impart unto you not only the gospel, not the gospel of God only, but also our own souls, because you were very dear to us. Okay. Affectionately desirous of you. Affectionate. So it categorizes the kind of desire that they had.
Yes.
So it's not like a weird desire, I want to own you or possess you.
Right.
It's not a sexual desire. It's not it's not a weird and disordered sort of desire. It's I care about you because you are. I care about the fact that you are a human being.
Right.
And I want to therefore give you good things.
Right.
And if we can cultivate that as the foundation, if we can cultivate that, I want to care about everybody that way. I want to be able to have that affection for everyone who I meet, regardless of who they are, what their status might be, or even what I might go into with like my preconceived notions about them. I want to cultivate them. So what we're really talking about then is an affection, a form of friendship and love that corresponds to the deepest bond of charity.
Yeah.
So when the virtue of charity is present in our lives, when we have cultivated the virtue of charity, then we'll be able to have that affection for everyone we meet.
Yeah.
And that affection which allows for the other loves to grow and develop.
Yeah. I do like this. So the one you read was a different translation, but the RSV. This one just seems a little bit more intense, and I really like it.
That's the NAB.
Oh, the NAB?
Yeah.
No. Oh, sorry. Dang it. That's the one.
So, being affectionately desirous of you,
I guess the same thing.
we were ready to share with you not only the gospel of God, but also our own selves, because you had become very dear to us.
I guess the NAB had the word determined. So there was like an intention that was there.
So the New American Bible says, with such affection for you, we were determined to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our very selves as well. So dearly beloved had you become to us. All right, let's look at that. We were determined versus we were ready.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's an interesting
Isn't that
translation.
interesting?
I'd have to get the Greek in front of me to look at it, but
Right.
that's an interesting difference in the way of translating it. So we were determined
Right.
versus we were ready.
Right.
Um,
It's like you're approaching someone not just haphazardly, but with intention, with like, I see you, I'm willing to see you, I'm willing to know you, I'm willing to really be around you. Because that last part is sticking out only now because we're going through the program with Catholic Psych, but we share our very selves.
Right.
Like, I am a part of this. Like, if I'm called to share myself authentically with you and make myself a gift to you. And
Yeah.
but
Right.
it's also so important that I also share with you who Jesus is,
Mm-hmm.
who reveals man to himself. That one verse is like everything about how to approach people in community, how you are called to give of yourself to another, but all of it united through the gospel.
So, but which word are you talking about?
Oh.
We were determined to share the gospel with you,
I like
or
the-
we were ready to share the gospel.
The one that
with you?
sticks out to me the
Or
most
our
is
very selves, rather.
all of it
We
sticks
were
out.
determined to share ourselves.
I like determined.
We were ready to share ourselves.
Mm-hmm. But then ready kind of implies like there was some preparation in your own heart that you had to like take stock of. Like, you had to go through your own story or your own stuff in order to really authentically make a gift of yourself.
I'm intrigued because so determined
Mm-hmm.
would seem to mean like I have made a decision. I am going to make sure that this gets shared with you.
Yeah.
I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I've decided that it's happening. Whereas ready, we were ready to share our very selves with you. Implies, at least the way I'm reading it right now, implies an awareness that the other is also an agent.
That's true. Right. It's true.
If I
like
am
there's
determined,
a choice
yeah,
from
if
the
I
other.
am determined to share, then I'm going to make sure that you get this.
Yeah.
But if I'm ready, it means that I'm engaging with you.
Mm-hmm.
And the sharing of the gift, the sharing of myself,
mutual.
the sharing of the gospel requires your receptivity.
It does. Yeah.
And so I am ready. The moment you decide to be receptive to the gospel, to the good news, to even the things that are deepest in my heart, the moment that you are receptive, I'm ready to give it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And also I desire to do that.
Right.
Versus I am determined to give it to you.
In a way that could feel imposing.
Exactly.
And not out of a place
Exactly.
of like love.
All right, now it's your turn to keep going because I want to try and find the Greek text.
Oh, I was going to invite you to do that.
So we're looking at, what was it, 1 Thessalonians?
2:8.
Okay.
This is really, I mean, it's interesting because now you realize why scripture is so important, but like translation is so important. Because what does it say? I'm intrigued by this. But because you had become very dear to us.
Interesting.
What is the knowledge that we must know now?
I want to see if I can. Here's. Oh no, that's going to be the same one. Well, because it's sort of suggesting we were pleased. Yeah.
In the Greek?
Yeah. My Greek is not very good. First of all, the fact that I decided I would look up the Greek while we're recording a podcast is as though I just know the Greek and I can really, quickly and easily parse the Greek words and everything. No, I'm looking at an English commentary about the Greek.
Oh, okay. Because then the New Revised Standard Version says, "So deeply do we care for you that we are." Well, I guess it's affectionate, determined. It still says determined in the New.
Yeah, this is suggesting
NRSV.
that like a more literal translation. So we were pleased to have imparted to you, not only the gospel of God, but also our own lives, because you have become beloved to us.
Mm-hmm.
Eudokomen, I think is the eudokomen.
Sounds Greek to me.
It is, in fact. In fact, yes. Also, okay. So it says yearning over you. So like there's a desire. That's the implied desire.
Yeah.
I guess think of it if you as a focused missionary.
That's exactly. This is one of the quotes. This is one of the Bible verses for focused missionaries.
Oh, okay.
That they have to memorize. But it's like when you're in prayer, like you take on Jesus place your desires within my heart.
Yeah.
And so there's a desire for mission, and so this really is mission oriented. It's like I'm going after people because the Lord has put that desire in my heart to go after them, just as He
Right.
goes after me. And so it's a continuation of that. And that's how I see it. It's like, oh, that makes sense. Like, so determined, but it's mission oriented.
Yeah. Well, a focused missionary, as they're conducting the mission, as they're out serving, as they're out evangelizing, will see this or that person and say, I want to share the gospel with them. And that desire grows, they bring it to prayer. And they decide, I'm going to invite this person into discipleship. I want to invite them to come and grow in that relationship with God. And so it's the desire, but the Greek saying, we were pleased.
Wow, it's interesting.
Right? So in other words, there's the sense of delight.
Yeah.
And that's important too.
Yeah.
It's not just I'm determined, I've decided that I'm going to do this thing.
But I delight in you in the same way that the Father delights in you.
Right. It's also not I'm ready. I'm ready to tell you things about God if you want. Like, yeah, I'm ready to do that. Like, I go to dinners and stuff, and people say, Father, would you mind saying a blessing? And I'm like, I'm totally unprepared. Nobody's ever asked me to do something like that before. You know?
Yeah.
No, I know that that's something that I'm ready whenever I'm asked to do it. Yeah, I can take care of that.
Yeah.
But this is as we look at the Greek text, this is why it's really helpful, folks, if you're looking at scripture passages. You might check multiple English translations if you're reading the Bible in English, but then sometimes it can be really fun to look at what the Greek text actually says.
Exactly.
Because you see how the literal meaning of the Greek has to sort of get massaged into a usable English meaning.
Yeah.
But to go back and look at that, so we were desirous of you, and we were pleased to share the gospel, and not only the gospel, but our very selves. Now that's the other level.
Yeah.
I'm happy to share the gospel with anyone. That's my job as a priest, right? I get up, I give a homily, and I'm happy to give a homily to anyone who's going to listen.
Right.
Right? And even this podcast. We are happy to tell people about Jesus through this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
But not everyone who listens to this podcast has direct access to our hearts and to us, right? We still love you. Please don't misunderstand. We do still love you.
Yeah.
Just like not everyone who hears me give a homily has direct access or knowledge of my life.
Right.
Right. There are people who do, but it's simply not possible. Like on a human level, it's not possible for us to know absolutely every single person who we come in contact with. It's not possible because we're limited in our humanity. But here we go, looking then at that sort of deeper level. We were pleased to share with you not only the gospel, but also our very selves. And so it gave us joy.
Yeah.
Not just to tell you about Jesus, but it gave us joy also to be part of your life.
Yeah.
And to invite you into our lives, to experience something of communion and friendship with us.
Exactly. That's so cool how like God is wrapping the gospel in the context of relationship and community. It's not just enough to hear the words. Like it is not. Now it is. Jesus can do that. He can speak to you by yourself, but He doesn't want it to remain private. So private that you cut yourself off from relationship with other people. Looking more deeply into like the program and how I love it so much, but if Jesus wants us to heal, He's going to have us heal through relationships and through people. So if I was wounded in experience with other people, God also has a plan to heal you through other people. And to have that corrective emotional experience where I'm sorry, it's so hard not to say these words.
So part of
the technical language.
We're gonna say this. So part of what we're doing is we're going through this Catholic Psych Model of Applied Personalism certification course. Is learning about something like a corrective emotional experience. A corrective emotional experience is that experience that kind of gives you the corrective to whatever emotional trauma or suffering that you may have endured before. And so if you were always told you are you're no good, to have somebody speak to you and share how much they value you as a person, how much they value your presence and your life, right? This is a corrective emotional experience.
Exactly.
Right?
And
just as an example.
That's a perfect example. So that's what I feel this is alluding to as well, is just people can heal in community, in the context of community. And so, oh my gosh, what a mission for like the Catholic Church to not only present the gospel, but to have people share their lives with each other. This is
Yeah.
this is the gospel.
See, I would say it's not so much about community
Yeah.
as it is about the one who's the minister, right? So Paul and his companions who have the missionary activity charged to them.
That's true.
They
yeah.
have been sent out as the missionaries. They've been sent out to do this. And so there's a job for them to do. But as they carry out the job, they have to recognize also that they're not separate from.
Right.
They're called to minister, but ministry is not something that you do separate from relationship. And so it's not even so much about the community as like we all grow together. It is that, of course.
The deeper levels
what
of
this
one-on-one.
particular verse is talking about is we, meaning Paul and his companions who were charged with the mission of evangelizing, were so desirous of you, meaning the Thessalonians, the community, that we desired to share not only the gospel, it pleased us, it gave us joy to share not just the gospel, which gives us joy every time we share it, but also to share our very selves. That is, it gave us joy not only to carry out the mission,
Right.
not only to do the work, but it gave us joy also to share ourselves. That is, to become part of your community. Both things were happening. And it's very easy, I think, church life gets like this, right? I have this job. I do this thing. I'm a staff member. I'm on this particular committee or something. And so I have this job to do. And so I can do that. I'm very happy to do that. But to enter more deeply into the relationship, maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not quite so happy to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a little bit more than what I wanted. Now, this doesn't mean like we can't have healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries are good. This is another thing we learn about in the Catholic Psych model of applied personalism.
That's great.
Certification, that boundaries are important. But
Yeah.
the idea that the one doing the ministry, the one providing that service, the one who is evangelizing, can also enter into friendship. And actually, that's a focus model very much.
Yeah.
Because focus speaks about forming friendship, and through that friendship, then allowing that evangelization to happen, or through evangelization, allowing the friendship to take place.
Exactly.
Right. So both of these things are possible.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like it's not quite so much the focus on community as it is on that bridging that gap between the one who shares the gospel and the one or ones with whom it is shared.
I think there's a lot of angles you can look at this from.
Yeah, that's the fun part about doing Bible study.
Exactly, because you can
Right.
you see something different, you see something different, but it all is pointing towards.
I'm just thinking of Shrek saying layers.
That's exactly what I feel this is. There's so much layers to this because you can apply it to a group setting, a one-on-one setting, a global church setting. It's all applicable at all these different levels.
Well, and then so from an ecclesiological perspective, right? If we want to get into the theology of the church, we have there's multiple ways in which we examine the church. Right? Avery Dulles writes this great book called Models of the Church, and in this book he started the book he first published in the 70s, and then republished over time with like new addendums and edits and things, which is really fascinating. He ends up at the end, just shortly before his passing, he publishes like the final volume in which he critiques his own work and his own approach to it.
Interesting.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But he writes here are these different ways of looking at the church and understanding the church. And there are certain things that have to be present in an authentic model of the church. Lumen Gentium, Vatican II, tells us the church is hierarchical. So there is a hierarchy.
Yeah.
But if we look at the church exclusively as something hierarchical, so like top down, so you have pope, then bishops, and then priests, and then religious, and then lay people, or something like that. Well, then you're going to have a messed up sort of version of the church.
Yeah.
Except that the church is hierarchical. That's a statement of fact.
Right.
It's not the only thing. It's simply it is of the nature of the church to have a hierarchy.
Yes.
But the nature of the church being hierarchical does not mean that the church is not community. Because the church is also the people of God.
It's like a vertical, and then there's a horizontal view to this.
There's that. So you'd have like a triangle. You could put a big circle around it,
Okay.
And you can also recognize that that the lines that delineate the hierarchy don't necessarily mean that there's a separation of relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so, just as like lay people can have a relationship with their priest. They can know their priest, and they can have these conversations, and the priest can share his life with them. So too, the laity can have a direct connection with their bishop. Right? There's the hierarchical communion. So by virtue of belonging to a parish, you're in communion then with the priest, who's in communion with the bishop, who's in communion with the Pope.
Yeah.
So there's this way of saying, no, I understand by virtue of the organization and the structures that exist.
Right.
But the relational part is not defined. The relational part isn't determined by the hierarchy.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? Many people only see the first part, the hierarchy.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's they base off their entire experience or what they think is just off that.
Right. And when we only understand the church in terms of hierarchy, we have an impoverished understanding.
Yeah.
If we reject the idea of hierarchy, we also have an impoverished understanding of the church.
Yeah.
Because and this happens in some of the evangelical communities that have kind of experienced a collapse.
Yeah. Like Hillsong, for example, they had a lot of there was Hillsong pastor in New York and then New Jersey who scandal that they cheated on their wives, and one of the arguments was like this church got too big globally and there wasn't enough like organization.
Yeah. And often what happens is there's not a sense of accountability
And governance, yeah.
To whom am I accountable? I'm accountable to not only several other priests who are in various positions around the diocese, and not, to say nothing of the fact that they are my brothers in the priesthood, but I'm also accountable to the bishop.
Yeah.
So there's a built-in through the gift of hierarchy, there's an accountability that allows for governance.
Yes.
Absent that, we might have some other problems. So there's the gift of it, but then what Paul is getting at in 1 Thessalonians here is not only is there that aspect, there's the truth of I have been sent. I have been apostled out to you.
Yeah.
The apostle is the one who is sent out, right?
I'm apostling.
Yeah, exactly. So I have been sent out to you to bring the gospel. I've been given a mandate, commissioned by the apostles to bring the gospel to you. And so I come with that hierarchical authority to share the good news with you. And I am the authority because I'm the one who has received the gospel. You have not yet received the gospel, so it's my job to share the gospel with you.
Right.
But just because I have this apostolic mandate, just because I have been missioned here, because there's a commissioning from this other group higher up than me, that doesn't mean I am incapable or should not enter into a relationship with you.
Yeah.
Right? So this type of community needs to be built up.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
It's so cool. It's not so one-sided as one can be tempted to think that it is. And just just in the same way that we had to look at that one verse through so many different angles. It's
right. Well, you start with those multiple translations, then you go to the Greek, and then you start thinking about what those meanings would be, and like the difference between determined and ready.
Yeah.
And then from there to realize desirous of and pleased to.
Yeah. In other words, like there's always more than what we think there is.
There's a lot more there.
Yeah.
And furthermore, because this is a statement of ecclesiology. This is Paul, who has established a church at Thessalonica, writing to the church there and describing what he desires for the church. He's writing from a place of authority.
Yes, yeah.
And he's writing from a place of hierarchy, and yet he's also writing as a brother. He's also writing very much as an equal, as one who wants to be with them, who is with them. To use the phrase of Pope Francis, right? He has the smell of the sheep. When we reduce the church just to hierarchy, we end up really running the risk of thinking that it's all about who's in charge and who has power.
Yes.
And in the end, that's really not what it's
not at
about.
All.
But that's also how you end up with abuse of power.
Yes.
Or absolute rejection of power.
Right.
Absolute rejection of power leads to chaos. Abuse of power leads to chaos.
Wasn't that one time that there was a pope who was hiding in France and St. Catherine of Siena had to go find him to go tell him to come back home?
Yeah. Yeah, the Avignon
because there were
papacy.
two other imposter popes happening at the same time.
Yeah, the Avignon papacy.
Chaos.
Not a great time in the life of the church, but we got it figured out. We got it figured out. But in the same way, the reason that we can talk about how important it is for the shepherd to have the smell of the sheep, is that if that's missing, then it's very easy to abuse the hierarchical power.
It is, yeah.
Um,
And there's history of that.
yeah. At the same time, if there's the assumption that you're going in already thinking that any kind of hierarchy must be therefore bad, you end up not really catching what the church is all about,
Right.
and why the church exists the
Right.
way that she exists.
Right.
And if you miss out on why the church exists the way that she exists, why she does what she does, and if you miss that deeper understanding of what the church is really all about, you end up thinking that I can just make the church to be whatever I want. I can sing a new church into being. By the way, Sing a New Church into Being is a dumb song.
I've never heard this before.
Good. Oh, it's banished here. I would never allow it here.
Wait, this is like a hymn?
Yes. It's actually to a great melody. It's a melody to a very traditional hymn.
Is it from the 70s?
The song itself, like
Yeah.
the Sing a New Church, yes, it is, and it's just dumb
fine.
because it's all about us. First of all, it doesn't praise God. So
That's annoying.
yeah, the whole song is about us.
It's not pointed towards worship of
and
God.
Exactly. Like if it's not pointing towards worship of God, then we shouldn't be singing it as a liturgical hymn for sure.
Gosh, what happened
Right,
in the 70s?
but they like it's often used at mass, and it ought not be.
Yeah.
But then it also says, "Sing a new church into being," and
The church already exists.
there's only one thing you can sing into being:
What?
a song. A song
true.
that is not sung is not a song. It must be sung in order for it to be what it is, right?
That's true.
So the only thing that can be sung into being is a song, because by its very nature it requires the action of singing.
Yeah.
But I cannot sing a church into being.
No,
Only God can speak something into existence.
literally.
And so this song appropriates for humanity what it belongs properly to God. It's terrible theology. Just vapid, vacuous nonsense.
Vacuous nonsense.
It's just awful. And yes, I do have strong opinions about it. How
No,
did you know?
don't. You don't
How
say.
did you know? All right, so here's the other question then.
Yeah.
We talk about all this stuff with relationship and community and the importance of that. Let's go back to the dating fast.
We're gonna go first, look,
and the crinkle.
And the crinkle.
No, I want to come back to that. I want to
Is
come
it
back to the
also
dating
interesting
fast.
that every time she said crinkle, I always thought crinkle cut fries?
No, that's not unusual at all. That means that you're thinking clearly and logically. Your heart is in the right place, and you have good taste and decency.
And I think that's why I decided to spell it with a K, because that's spelled with a K, isn't it?
I don't know.
Crinkle,
I actually don't know.
cut fries, I think.
I sincerely don't. Maybe, all right, after we finish recording, we can
Okay.
look up and see the correct spelling of crinkle, and we'll put it in the show notes.
Gosh, that's fine.
Yeah. All right. No, this is the thing that I'm thinking about. All right, a dating fast. We talk about the importance of community, the importance of relationship,
Yeah.
and how relationships can be healing, the corrective emotional experience. These things that can be so healing and so important, and how God can work in the context of that relationship. So then, dating fast, yes or no?
Oh, interesting. Whoa. But okay. Dang. Well,
Right?
you gotta bring that up to focus.
Well, no. I'm asking you the question. You haven't heard my thoughts on it yet.
I think it is appropriate in the sense that you really need, like, say you're someone who's just been in relationship after relationship after relationship. You have not had the chance to experience your own interior life. You don't really know what's going on, and you've used other relationships as a way to mask what's happening. So
Possibly.
yeah.
I don't want to accuse everyone.
Right?
Of
No,
having,
not,
like,
and not everyone has done that.
Yeah. Hey, welcome to Focus. You've only had unhealthy relationships your entire life, and like, what do you know? You don't know anything about me.
So that could be part of it. But everybody's story is so different. But the goal of the dating fast isn't to not date. It's to have intimacy with Jesus, like to learn his voice, to learn how he speaks to you, to grow it in that confidence and that clarity that even the gift of a relationship, it's a gift. It's not something that, okay, yes, you might have made this distance to get there, but everything was presented to you as a gift from God. And so it is from God that we need to go back to understand how to live out this relationship And I was talking to someone recently, and she's been married for over 30 years, and she's like, yeah, it doesn't always satisfy, and like if I didn't have God, like I would be losing it. And it was a really odd, like it's not always perfect, but like I need, at the end of the day, I have Jesus.
Right.
That this is what matters. I have Jesus at the end of the day, and my husband does not satisfy every desire, every whim, and everything that I hope for. He can't. There's no way.
Yeah.
So
that I think that's just a good understanding in regards to marriage. That the fact of marriage doesn't mean that every single thing is satisfied for you.
right.
Your spouse can't be the only thing. As much as that relationship has to be primary in your human relationships, to expect that your spouse will be all things for you and everything for you,
Right.
you almost set yourself up for disappointment.
And we have a desire for that, so it's interesting that it's there, but it's there for God
Yeah,
to enter into.
correct. Yeah, we are always looking for the infinite.
We are.
And
We're
we
made
need
for the
that.
transcendent.
Exactly. Okay, so my thinking with the dating fast is, at first it can seem like a little bit of a jarring concept, and it almost seems, especially if you're coming from just sort of the world's understanding of dating, it can seem repressive. Like you're not giving them the freedom to just be who they are. So let them date. Like who cares? But then you have to really dig into not only the purpose but its nature. What is a fast? A fast means for a period of time doing without something.
But yeah, it's not permanent.
It's not permanent. So a fast by its very nature is not permanent. And so a fast is also then oriented to a purpose. That fast is oriented to helping you get healthy. It's oriented to helping you break a habit. The fast is oriented simply to learning discipline. And so a fast is by its very nature intended to be temporary and is intended to help you to grow. So when you understand that, then you say a dating fast. I'm going to fast from this particular activity, dating, for the purpose of growing. Put in the spiritual context, the fast will be for the purpose of growing in relationship with Christ and in making the adjustment to a different way of living that requires a lot of me, and that requires a lot of my emotional strength.
Yeah.
Right? Like to do this is to enter into to be a focused missionary is to enter into a very different way of living. Very different focus and a very different way of spending your energies. Not for nothing, but if you're going to be spending all your time with a small community of people, living in very direct contact with them, praying with them daily, and then going out and trying to share not only the gospel but also your very self, to take 1 Thessalonians again, then what kind of self do you have to offer in the context of a dating relationship? There's going to be a division of heart.
Yeah.
Or if you're like just starting a new dating relationship, you'll be so focused on building up that relationship, which is actually a healthy thing to do if you want to have a healthy dating life, like to be focused on the person that you're interested in, right? Like, hey, I actually like you.
Yeah.
Instead of I'm going to ignore you for 3 weeks at a time, and I'll check in with you once a month, and then we can sort of talk. No, there's got to be some kind of intentionality.
Yeah.
So I can understand the logic of it all there, and I think just for the sake of helping somebody to have a healthier approach, that can be necessary. I think that we have a lot of issues with courtship in general.
We do. You get a class on the anthropology of dating and courtship and focus once you're done with the dating fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think some kind of corrective needs to be offered.
Even simply this idea, I remember this was so funny, and a lot of guys stressed out over this. Like, when you became a second year, you were in your class with John Zimmer, and he's like telling you this anthropology of like, here's what dating is like, here's what courtship is, and here's how it leads to marriage. And I was like, okay, you're listening. And he goes, gentlemen, go on several dates this week. Like, going on a date doesn't mean you're going to get married, but there was an encouragement to go on several dates with different people over like the next couple weeks. Doesn't mean just because you went on one day with this person, you're going to like stay with that person. Something so simple like that. It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, going back though to the idea of a fast, it's for a period of time. And in that period of time, you're going to learn a lot about yourself. How do you do going without? Or do you struggle going without? But think about it, if you were trying to make the adjustment and you hadn't had a chance to, like, you're trying to make an adjustment to missionary life.
Yeah.
To going out and sharing the gospel every day with people.
That's already overwhelming.
Yeah. By itself, right?
By itself.
But if you haven't made some kind of an adjustment in your own understanding of yourself and in your own approach to the world, like, you could run into some problems. There was a guy who was discerning the priesthood when I was vocation director. And the big thing was he was super interested in being a priest. Tremendous interest in learning everything he possibly could about the priesthood. Lots of questions about seminary. Was very, very, very interested in the whole thing. And he was sincere, and he said, I think God might be calling me to be a priest. I think that this might be my vocation. I said, okay. And there was a lot there, but there was this one thing that he couldn't do. He couldn't break up with his girlfriend.
Oh.
And he wasn't telling me that. It was like this one thing that he was holding back was that he was very seriously dating this very nice young woman. Yeah. And so it finally comes out, well, I just don't want to have to break up with my girlfriend to go to the seminary. I was like, well, that is a requirement. Yeah, you can't be in a committed, serious relationship with another person if you want to come to the seminary, because celibacy is part of the priesthood and the Latin rite of the Catholic Church. And so being in seminary would mean that you're like starting to experience what the celibate life looks like.
Right.
And that's part of your discernment. You might discover that, in fact, God is not calling me to the celibate life. He's not calling me to the priesthood then in the Latin Church, because I don't believe that I'm called to celibacy. Okay, then that's a helpful point of discernment. Well, if you don't want to break up with your girlfriend, I'm not going to make you break up with her.
Right.
But I can't give you an application to the seminary.
That doesn't.
I also can't give you an application to the seminary. Like, I think that there's a lot that's happened in your heart. I think there's a lot that God has done for you, and that if you believed that God was calling you to the priesthood, He would make that grace even more abundant and available to you. And in the meantime, you've got this very serious relationship, and it seems like that's actually a really healthy thing for you, that it's going well. Like, then he finally described the relationship to him, like, well, she sounds great. And so I asked, what are you waiting for? He said, what do you mean? I said, why haven't you proposed? And he said, you think I should? I'm like, well, you seem to really like deeply love her. Yeah. And you want to be with her. Yeah. Like, you don't want this relationship to come to an end. You're attracted to the priesthood. You're interested in the priesthood. You think the priesthood is great. That's all well and good, but you have this, they're married now. That's the right thing for you.
Yeah, that's
you are clearly supposed to be a married man.
Yeah.
But he just never talked about that. He was so fascinated by the priesthood. So I was like, okay. And then he finally talked to me about having this girlfriend that he didn't want to have to break up with. Oh.
Could it be like, attraction versus desire? Like, I remember, like, I was attracted to religious life, but during the retreat, I realized I didn't have a desire for the religious life.
Oh yeah, sure. Sure. So Storge, really full circle now. Like, the love of Storge, which is that love of affection, allows me to see something and to be affectionate towards it, to respect it.
Very much,
right?
Yeah.
So it means I can a stranger walks into my office, and Storge allows me to reverence their dignity as a human being, and to love them as they are. Yeah. Right? And to not expect anything from them, but simply to have that affection from them that says, welcome, you're here. Yeah. Come on in. I think we could say in a similar way that we can have that kind of an affection for religious life,
Yeah.
for the priesthood, even though it's not something that you might be called to.
That's where the discernment part comes in, though.
Right.
Because it's like, you think just because, well, how many people say, oh no, if I get close to Jesus, I'm going to become a nun. Or like, I have an affection, or like, I have an interest in, like, I love nuns. Oh my gosh, does that mean I'm going to be a nun?
Look,
The way that we jump.
if loving nuns was a determinant factor about whether or not you would be a nun, then I would be a nun. I love nuns. I think they're great. I love the religious life. I'm fascinated by sisters. I care for them very deeply.
Yes.
I know that I'm not called to be a nun.
Clearly.
Yeah, no, because that, like, you know, have you ever seen a bearded nun? I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. But there's a genuine affection and respect that one can have for these different states in life, these different vocations. That genuine love and respect needs to be treasured.
Yes.
But that genuine love and respect should not be mistaken for a vocation.
Right.
Right? Just because you have respect for someone, for their way of living, just because you think that it's something beautiful, doesn't mean it's what God has called you to. I love marriage. I think marriage is incredible, and I deeply respect marriage. I'm committed to helping marriages work. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm weird as a priest, but I actually enjoy doing marriage prep with couples.
Are there priests who don't enjoy this?
There are, yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, there are priests who would rather have funerals than weddings. I like.
Really?
Yeah, I like doing weddings. I don't like going to wedding receptions. We've talked about
Yeah,
this.
yeah, we know this already.
Yeah, but I do like weddings very much, and I like working with couples who are preparing for marriage. I like seeing them get stronger in their relationship. I think marriage is absolutely necessary for the health and life of the church. With all of that said, and all that respect that I have for marriage, I know that God did not call me to marriage. God called me to the priesthood as a celibate man, and I'm grateful for that. There's a beauty to marriage that I can appreciate, and this is actually something that came up in the in Father Benedict Rochelle's book, Spiritual Passages. He writes about, I think we might have talked about it here a while back.
I don't remember, but continue.
Well, so he writes about the sort of romantic notion that people can have of things, and that the romantic notion is good. So a priest, he says, might have a sort of romanticized understanding of marriage.
Yeah.
Because he's not married himself.
Yeah.
He has a romantic understanding of marriage. Now, that romantic understanding of marriage can be negative in that if he doesn't actually know married couples and talk to married couples about the joys and the challenges of marriage, then his romantic notion of marriage remains idealized.
Yeah.
Friendship with married couples and interaction with them.
Going back to
Paul. Being
Paul.
desirous of sharing not only the gospel but our very selves.
Yeah.
Right? If you have that interaction, then you come to see that the romantic notion and idea of marriage is good.
Yeah.
There's something beautiful about it, but there's even more to marriage. There's more than just that romantic notion. Okay? Good. So the romanticized version is a good thing, but it needs to be tempered by reality.
Yeah.
Right? Same thing can be true with religious life. You have a love and an affection for sisters and for religious life, and so that affection needs to be tempered by reality. And so all that respect that you had for religious life, all the love that you have and the affection that you have for those sisters, you discover, I don't desire religious life. God has not placed in my heart a desire to live this way. And if God has not placed in your heart a desire to live that way, then you can be very confident that that's not your vocation.
Exactly. Yeah. There was even like this moment, I remember just when I was on retreat, because at that point it was a 4-day discernment retreat, and I knew by day 2 where I was called. So I literally was like,
That's
well, what
great,
am I
though.
going to do for the next 2 days? No, it was so beautiful, because one of the big images that I received was that Jesus is the vine, and, you know, the vocations are the branches. They are not possible without Jesus, but also how the graces from the religious life actually flow into the lives of married people, and that married people have the same ability and the capacity to receive graces that pour forth back into the world. And this moment, like in prayer, I then was talking to Sister Sister Josephine Rose at the end of it, and I was telling her this thing.
Joe
Rowe, Sister Joe Rowe, and I was telling her like this vision that Lord had given me, and this all happened while like the sisters, it was like a game night, and so the sisters were putting on a game night with the rest, and I was just in the back, and like the Lord just presented this vision, like, this is not possible without my grace. None of this is. Marriage is not possible without my grace. Religious life is not possible without my grace. And how the two are complementary. Like they're not opposing to each other. They're not mutually exclusive from one another. And so when I told Joro that, she was like, I just read that this morning. And then we're both crying in the hallway. And I was like, this is so cool.
And this was what day?
This was the last day of the retreat when we were finally able to kind of like talk.
Okay. But you had the understanding that religious life was not for you during this discernment retreat, the 4-day retreat.
On day 2.
Day 2, okay.
By day 2, and then I was like, well,
it doesn't mean that God can't give you graces.
Right,
for the rest
and
of the
He gave
retreat.
me so many graces to just have a deep appreciation for the gift of religious life. That this is certainly a call. This is like so beautiful, so lovely, and so worthy of being like honored and encouraging vocations in that. But in my heart, I was finally aware that this was not what I was made for. And I was, in a way, kind of painfully aware, because I was like, but I wanted this. and God was like, no, I have a plan for you elsewhere. And marriage is going to be the means by which I heal you. And it was just it was so very clear. I was like, oh. Now, that was 2014. Okay. Yeah. So, then you just like, you're waiting a couple of years and you're like, oh, dang it, God, what happened to what you said? This is where like every vocation story is so particular and unique and different. Yeah.
It's interesting though, that early on you knew. There are some times when we simply know. And it's not because we've done any extra discernment or because we've got any special insight. It's simply a knowledge. And this happens a lot. Like almost every family that I know that's gone and made the college visit tour will talk about one school that they went to and the kid refused to get out of the car. Just said, no, I'm not going here. And the kid knew from pulling into the parking lot that this was not the right place.
Yeah.
And
interesting. Wow. Yeah.
It's this almost inexplicable understanding that this is not where I belong.
Yeah.
And sometimes the poor teenager can't quite pinpoint exactly what they're feeling or express why they don't want to see it, but they know that this isn't the right place. And you'll talk to different parents about it, and some parents take the approach of, all right, that's not where you're supposed to be, no problem, and they go somewhere else. They move on to the next school. They just turn around and leave. They accept that their child is aware this isn't the right place. There's others who are like, we drove all this way, get out of the car, we're taking the tour.
Yeah.
And they take the tour, and as soon as the tour begins, the parent realizes, we don't belong here. This is not the right place for my child. And then the parent feels bad because they have to stay on the tour, so they're not being rude to the other people who are there. And like they're just stuck
That's
doing
so
it.
awkward.
Like I had that experience as I was discerning my vocation. I went and I visited a religious community, and I knew the moment I set foot in there. I met the vocation director. Like he came outside to meet me, and I knew meeting him that I was not called to belong to this community. And it was nothing against the community. It was just I knew God does not want me here.
Yeah.
There was no question in my mind that it was not the right place for me. And I couldn't really pinpoint why, because I had always felt like a draw to, and I think it was that same sort of affection.
Yeah.
Like I have an affection for the religious life, and so the friars who I knew, I admired them.
Yeah.
I thought they were great guys. I was intrigued by how they approached things. But again, I knew that God was not calling me to that life. So there's those ways that you just know it. But then I think coming back again to Paul, the beauty of sharing the gospel and the desire to share the gospel. It's almost through the gospel that, especially when you're doing ministry, you're invited into people's lives.
You are.
But it's also through the gospel that you invite people into your life. Like you've experienced this in serving as a missionary, as a youth minister, as a spiritual director. It's because you're in a position to share the gospel that people invite you into their life. But then it's also because of that you're able to grow in charity towards the people who you serve. Yeah. Such that you want them to know something of your life. Same thing is true as a priest. Like, I've been invited into people's lives in all kinds of crazy ways, and in all different moments, whether joyful or sad. And you get invited into them not because of anything that I have. Right. I get invited into it because I'm a priest. That's the Fishers of Men video.
That video makes you cry. It's so
great.
Good.
And 20 years later.
That's 20 years ago?
Yeah.
No, it's not.
No, it's not quite. Almost 20 years later. Wow. Very, very close to 20 years, because it has footage from World Youth Day 2006 in Cologne. So, World Youth Day 2005, excuse me. World Youth Day 2005. So it's not quite 20 years old.
It's practically 20 years old.
But it's very close to being 20 years old, yeah. Wow. But it's still so relevant. And one of the priests in it, he says, you come into a person's life and all different kinds of moments. And because you are a priest, you belong there. Yeah. But then it's not so much because you're a priest that you're invited back in. Then it becomes more personal. And in the same way, like, because I am a priest, I've encountered tons of people. But it's because I'm a human being. And the priesthood has given me this access into people's lives that I've been able to invite people into my life, and to have that friendship. So that, like St. Paul says, we became desirous not only to share the gospel with you, but we were also pleased to share our very selves.
Seems a pretty good way to end.
I think we can stop there.
Thanks, Father. This is
You're welcome, Paola. Thank you.
I mean, just, scripture. Always bring it back to scripture. That's what I do.
I'm glad you had that sticky note with you today.
Crinkle it is. We're going to look up crinkle cut fries after this.
Oh my goodness.
And this is Roar Like the Lamb. I'm Paola Peña.
Father Sam Kachuba. God bless you.